Joe Paul Echon, Filipino computer engineer. Many people came to Saudi Arabia primarily for financial gains. Joe Paul Echon was one of them. However, there was something else in store for him. His story is full of cultural and spiritual conflicts. The road to success is very long. Sound knowledge produces sound results. Ignorance and guesswork leads to a very fragile foundation. In fact, seeking knowledge with an open mind wins half the battle of life. Another half is won through courage and honest commitment to the call of one's conscience. Joe belonged to a very strict religious family. He participated in church activities from childhood and was very proud of it. He described his Christian training and background as follows. Christian background. I was born in a Roman Catholic family and we attended church services very regularly. As an elementary school student, I was volunteer child and willingly cleaned the chapel. I was also the assistant to the priest during the communion. As a high school student, I used to sing in the church choir. I also played guitar and sometimes piano. I was also a member of Legion of Mary, which is a youth group that discusses how to love and worship Mary. We had different statues of Mary in our church. For example, Virgin Mary, Mary Magdalene, Immaculate Conception. There was a specific statue of Mary for our youth group also. During religious gatherings, our priest used to read the Bible and we simply listened to it. I always wondered why we are not allowed to participate in reading the Bible. First major change in my life. As a college student, there was a big change in my life with regard to religion. One of my classmates invited me to visit his church. This was a Protestant church. In this Protestant church, not only priest but also every member of the church had a Bible in his hand to read. To my surprise, the Bible stressed over and over again not to worship any statue or idol. This was a major lesson for me. I therefore switched from Roman Catholic to Protestant church to avoid worshipping any statue. I was the first Protestant in my family. My family also started exploring the teachings of Protestants and they readily accepted them. We were very active in this church also. I started my formal training as a preacher of the Bible. In this way, I acquired a sound knowledge of Bible and I was like a small pastor or a priest. Image of Muslims in Philippines. I had no idea about Islam. During my school life, I did not recognize any Muslim student, probably because they were not practicing Islam and hence could not be distinguished from others. I had a few Muslim teachers during my college life, but they were also just Muslims by name. I did not care for Muslims since the media had painted a very bad picture of them. For example, Muslims are terrorists. If one Muslim committed a crime, the media used to blame all the Muslims. We were told not to cross in front of a Muslim because he may kill you. We were also advised not to deal with Muslims since they are very bad people. I must add here that our priests and pastors never said anything bad about Muslims since they were always busy criticizing other Christian sects. My work experience. After completing BSc degree in computer engineering, I joined a company called Intel in Philippines. We manufactured chips for computer hardware. After a month, I shifted my job to another company where most of my schoolmates were working. It provided me with more professional growth and valuable experience. After 5 years, I decided to open my own company in a partnership with four other individuals. The company, however, failed because it was run inefficiently. I was the first to resign and leave this firm. New job hunting. A friend suggested that we should try to find a job in Saudi Arabia in order to accumulate some capital. After a few years, we would be able to start our own business in our own country. We contacted an agency. It had demands for computer engineers from Saudi Arabia, from a Saudi Arabian bank, and the manager happened to be in Manila for recruiting. An interview was arranged for us. We were accepted, but the salary was not very attractive. I declined the offer. The agency kept calling me again and again. Finally, my friend compelled me to join him in this adventure. Thus, I accepted the offer to show respect to my friend, and we went to Saudi Arabia. My initial impression of Saudi Arabia. I did not know Arabic and didn't like it because I thought it was not useful for the world. Likewise, I did not want to learn Arabic since all my colleagues spoke good English. We maintained the computers and communication network for a bank in the eastern region of Saudi Arabia. I lived with a Filipino group in an apartment. The life in Saudi Arabia was very different. It had many social restrictions imposed on us, even though we were non Muslims. Thus, I experienced great stress and felt homesick. I was, however, hanging in order to earn a handsome amount of money. A ray of light in dark clouds. One day, I rented a cab in Dammam and agreed to pay 15 rial. The cab driver was well dressed and had a long beard. He changed his mind during the journey and demanded more money from me. At the end of the journey, he again insisted that I pay him more money. It annoyed me. I jumped out of the car and asked him, "Don't you pray 5 times a day?" He immediately said, "Please pay me 15 rial only." I gave him 15 and he left quickly and quietly. I started reflecting on this incident. I concluded that this cab driver must be a good person at heart. This was my first positive experience. I started thinking that Saudi citizens are basically very good people. It was like a silver lining in dark clouds. Another positive thing happened. It was related to food. I never tried Saudi food. One day we were in a remote area to complete a project. We were very hungry. There was no chance to get any Filipino food. I ate kabsa, which is chicken and rice, for the first time. It was very delicious. I was always looking for places that served kabsa. It developed my taste for other Saudi dishes. A critical dialogue. Abdullah Al Umri was my Saudi supervisor in the bank. He had good English knowledge and he was trained overseas. He was also very talkative. He started telling me a story. During his speech, the word Jesus came out of his mouth. I told him, "Stop, just stop here. Jesus is mine. How come you talk about Jesus?" This was first time I heard the word Jesus, peace be upon him, from a Muslim. It shocked me. During my 2 year stay in Saudi Arabia, nobody ever talked to me about religion. Moreover, I believed that sun is the god of Muslims, since they worship when sun rises and they worship when sun sets, and also they worship when sun is high in the sky. Abdullah paused momentarily at my comment. He then started sharing the names of various prophets with me, including Noah, Abraham, Moses, and others, peace be upon all of them. He said, "They are our prophets as well." I knew the names of these prophets from Bible. On hearing this, I realized that the Jews, Christians, and Muslims must have something common. Investigations of Islam. At this point in time, I started investigating Islam and the religion of Abdullah. I went to Jarir bookstore in Dammam to buy some books regarding Islam. I started glancing at the bookshelves. I was surprised to see many books on comparative religions, including books on Christianity. The title of one book surprised me a lot. Its title was Jesus, Not God, Son of Mary. I bought at least 5 books on comparative religions and went home to study them. These books had many questions from Bible. I started checking the quotations given in these books. I checked the first quotation from my Bible. It was correct. I thought it was to trick me. I checked the second quotation. It was also okay. I thought there may be some catch later on. To my surprise, all quotations were correct. I found that there is a center in nearby town called Al-Khubar. In this Islamic propagation center, I went and also wanted to buy some books from there, since I had finished the other books. I picked up many books on comparative religions in this Islamic propagation center, and I wanted to pay for them. The receptionist told me that these books were free. I insisted to pay for the books. He tried to give me the books as a gift. I again insisted to pay for them. They accepted a small amount of money for fulfilling my wish, and I walked out of the center with new books. I rushed home to investigate their contents. I compared quotations from Bible one by one. All of them were again correct. This puzzled me. I was still not convinced about Islam. I, however, visited the propagation center again. One gentleman invited me to watch a video of Ahmad Didat. I had decided to be fair in viewing this video. I said to myself that in no way I shall exercise any prejudice. In this video, there was a debate between a Muslim scholar and a Christian scholar. Clearly, the Christian scholar failed to defend his faith. After viewing the video, I asked myself, if this famous Christian scholar could not defend his faith, what about me? I am only a follower. At that moment, my faith started to collapse. It was as if I had lost a great battle and did not know where to run for help. There is no compulsion. There is no compulsion. There is no compulsion in religion. One day I was playing dart with some Filipino friends. One of them happened to be a Muslim. His name was Ridwan Abdul Salam. He was only Filipino Muslim I knew. I briefly asked him about Islam in a corner while the rest of my friends were busy playing. He did not give me a long lecture. I accompanied him to his home and he gave me an English translation of Quran and a few brochures on comparative religion. My Filipino Muslim friend did not try to persuade me to embrace Islam. I must also add that Brother Abdullah never persuaded me to accept Islam either. Similarly, nobody at Islamic Propagation Center ever tried to convince me to change my faith. Everybody provided me with information and left the choice up to my heart and mind. In this way, I felt comfortable interacting with Muslims. Had they forced the teachings of Islam on me, I would have been driven away from Muslims. However, I wondered why nobody had ever talked to me about Islam during my first 2 year stay in an Islamic country like Saudi Arabia. The call of my conscience. Through extensive study and investigations, three things became very clear to my mind. Number one, Jesus is not God. Number two, Bible is not in its original form. It is corrupted book because it has many contradictions. My religion was based on this book information. I wondered, if book is corrupted, how can the religion be correct? If I try to resolve contradictions, it would become more complex and confusing. Hence, the religion of Christianity was like a dogma. Take it as it is without any ifs and buts about it, or leave it. This confusion created an internal pressure on my mind. Number three, the statement, there is no God worthy of worship except one God, was very simple, straightforward, and extremely easy to understand. It removed all the pressures from my mind and I felt like a free man. This ease and comfort enabled me to reflect on it again and again. I was pondering over it in my room and also while driving long distance in my car. I used to listen to various cassette tapes which I had bought from the Islamic Propagation Center. The idea of unity of God was becoming more and more clear to me. An internal force was telling me again and again to make a conscientious decision. The truth was so clear to my mind that I did not care what friends and family members would do to me. All I wanted to know was how to become a Muslim. Therefore, I went to Islamic Propagation Center in Khobar. As I entered the center, Islamic lectures were in progress in different rooms and in various languages. I joined the Filipino group. Brother Farid Ukanda was the lecturer. After his lecture, I asked him, how can a person become a Muslim? He asked me, do you want to become a Muslim? I promptly said yes. Everybody was surprised since it was my first time to attend an Islamic lecture at this center. Mr. Farid asked me, are you sure you want to accept Islam? Have you read enough about Islam? I said, yes, I have. I was again surprised that nobody was forcing me to nobody was forcing me or trying to talk me into embracing Islam. I came across a Saudi brother there. He said to me, your face looks like that of a Muslim. Mr. Farid gathered the participants of all the lectures and instructed me to repeat what Saudi brother says in Arabic. It will then be repeated in English, announcing that there is no God but one God, and Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his messenger. This simple statement makes you a Muslim. After this brief and simple ceremony, all the participants made a line and hugged me one by one and congratulated me from the core of their hearts. They were saying loudly again and again, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. God is the greatest, God is the greatest. When Joe was describing this incident to me, he was crying with happiness. He said, I never expected anything like this to happen to me. This sweet and peaceful remembrance of past always touches my heart. All praise is due to Allah, since Satan was not able to scare me away from saying Shahada. Moreover, by grace of God, fear of the reaction of friends and relatives also did not haunt my mind. Allah enabled me to recite Islamic prayer willingly and peacefully. Islamic name. After the Shahada, Brother Farid asked me, what Muslim name would you like to have? I thought to myself that I would like to have the name of a person who talked to me about Islam during my first visit to this center. This person was very polite, logical, and informative. He impressed me by his manners, brief presentation, and precise explanations. I did not know his name. I asked the receptionist of the center, what was the name of that person who talked to me after purchasing the books from you? He said, I recall that was Sheikh Saleh. I told them that Saleh would be my name. The brother instructed me to go home, take a bath, and offer salat to show your gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My first salat. I took a bath that evening and had a sound sleep. I went to a masjid for Fajr prayer next morning. I was shy to enter the masjid since I did not know what to do. One Sudanese brother passed near me and noticed my hesitation. He said to me, come right in. What's stopping you? I told him I became a Muslim last night. I don't know how to pray. He said, come in, I shall show you. He explained how I should clean myself in the toilet. He also demonstrated how to make ablution. He added, just follow us in salat and make a dua or supplication at the end. When I made my first sujood, I felt so great that I could never explain that feeling again. I always pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give me back my that first sujood. By grace of God, since that day, I've been performing all my salahs 5 times a day. Islamic education. I started going to Islamic Propagation Center regularly every evening. I learned the Arabic alphabet and how to read and write Arabic. Gradually, I started reading the Quran. The primary goal of my life was to learn how to read Quran correctly and fluently. I also learned the pillars of Islam and pillars of faith in detail. General lectures were very inspiring. Brother Ahmad Ricardi was our teacher. He made the lecture interesting and fascinating. I did not like to disrupt these educational activities. I, therefore, postponed my annual vacation to visit my parents and my homeland. Among many other things, it was made clear to me that involvement in usury in any form is forbidden in Islam. It is also prohibited to eat any meal upon which any supplication is made to other than Allah. I took all the teachings of Islam very seriously and tried my best to follow them. I was content and was very proud of my lifestyle. However, my boss, my colleagues, and housemates did not know about this big change in my life. A funny accident. One day, our supervisor, Mr. Abdullah, assigned a job to us in a remote area. We were supposed to go home, eat lunch, and proceed to the site of this project. I slipped away and did wudu to offer afternoon salat. On the way, I ran into Mr. Abdullah on the stairs. He saw my hands and face wet with water. He asked me, "What is this?" I told him that I did wudu to offer salat. He asked me, "Are you a Muslim?" I said yes. He was overjoyed. He told me not to go to this project and see him in the office after salat. Mr. Abdullah called his family on the phone to break the news. He took me with him to his home, and there was a big celebration with his family. I immediately felt like part of the family. Reaction of friends. I was living with 5 other Filipino friends in a house. 2 persons shared every room. I shared a room with my close friend and classmate from college. All of us cooked and ate dinners and lunch together. 2 important incidents took place. My friends were celebrating New York Day, and so a sumptuous dinner was prepared. I was invited to join in this dinner. I agreed, but I put a condition. I demanded that they should not pray during the dinner. They agreed. I, however, noticed that they prayed before the dinner, as is done in the Christian faith. They broke the promise they made with me. I therefore walked out of the dinner. Another similar incident happened. As I mentioned earlier, we used to eat lunch together. I, however, used to slip away to perform my afternoon prayer and join them a bit late. One day I was very late. They finished their lunch. I only saw my roommate there. He asked me jokingly, "Were you praying?" I told him, "You really put me on spot." "Yes, I was praying." He said, "Are you kidding?" I told him, "I'm a Muslim." He spread the word among other Filipino friends. It caused a big change in my friendship with my housemates. All of them gathered in my room, and first thing they said to me was that I was a backslider, traitor, and other similar labels. Then they asked me, "What is Islam? Why did you accept Islam?" Whatever they asked me, I opened the books and shared the answer with them. This was my first experience of talking to others about Islam. They were trying to revert me back to Christianity. I answered their question nicely and without any annoyance. Finally, one of them closed his Bible and said to me, "What are you trying to prove?" I told them, "It is clear that Islam is the true religion. It is also true that Jesus, peace be upon him, is not God but a messenger of God." Consequently, they left since they were totally disappointed from me. There was no more discussion among us. They were always going together for their activities. I was left alone. I therefore started looking for my Filipino friend Abdus Salam. He had changed his residence. I discovered his new home through some contacts, so I visited him. Abdus Salam had just returned from Hajj. I said salam to him. He was surprised. He asked me, "Did you embrace Islam?" He said, yes. So I told him, yes, I did embrace Islam, and I suggest that we share a room to lead an Islamic life. He agreed. We found a new apartment and we moved there immediately. We were friends and enjoyed our life there. We used to go to the Islamic Propagation Center together for education and advancement. We supported each other as true brothers. Dream come true. Our teacher for Quranic recitation at Propagation Center was Mr. Muhammad, a middle-aged Egyptian brother. This was his volunteer job. He was working full-time as an office boy with a firm to make both ends meet. One day, Abdul Salam and I paid him a courtesy visit. We found that he was living in a very tiny room with very deplorable conditions. We also noticed that one wall of his room was full of Quranic cassettes stacked on various shelves. We suggested and requested him to move into our room. There would be no rent or utility for him. He should, however, promise to teach us Quran. Brother Muhammad eagerly accepted the offer. He was teaching us Quran every day after Fajr. In this way, we learned the recitation of Quran from a professional reciter. Thanks God, our dream came true. My hobbies. I used to play and sing with the guitar since elementary school. I also learned how to play piano when I was in high school. I had brought my guitar and mouthpiece instrument with me in Saudi Arabia. I had a large collection of music recorded on high quality cassette tapes. On top of this, I was a chain smoker. I voluntarily started smoking as soon as I embraced Islam. One day, I saw one person smoking at my job. My tongue curled inside my mouth and tempted me to taste a cigarette. I, however, did not touch one for fear of God Almighty. I sold my guitar and cassette tapes for petty coins, since I wanted to get rid of these as fast as I could. One person pointed to my mouthpiece instrument. I told him that he can have it free. Now I had more time to devote to my Islamic growth. First visit to parents. I was planning to visit Philippines during my vacation. Abdul Salam informed me that his wife and daughters had accepted Islam and that I should visit his family during my stay in Philippines to impart some Islamic education to his family. When I arrived in Manila, my parents received me. Christian priests had taught us to put the hand of each parent on our forehead to show respect to them. I did not do it when I met my parents at the airport. Alternately, I kissed their foreheads. They were surprised. We, however, drove home in high spirits. My father was a former military man and always wore a serious face. He was somewhat reserved in his disposition. My mother was a college graduate and worked as a teacher. It was usually easier to talk to my mother. I said to my mother, I am a Muslim and I shall not eat pork. It was a big surprise for my parents. They told me that they had specially brought pork ribs for me. Pork ribs are considered a great delicacy in Philippines. It would not be inappropriate if the writer described one of his experiences with pork ribs. I was teacher in America and my students used to ask me the differences between Islam and Christianity. I told them, apart from other things, Muslims do not eat pork. One of my students said, Mr. Ahmad, you don't know what you are missing. Pork barbecue ribs are finger licking good. After this remark, all of them laughed boisterously and kept saying, Mr. Ahmad does not know what he is missing. Mr. Ahmad does not know what he is missing. Saleh's faith was very strong. He flatly declined pork and pork products. Saleh said to me, my parents had no other choice but to give me halal and Islamically permissible food. During my stay in Philippines, I tried to impart Islamic education to my parents and other relatives. I was very aggressive and wanted them to see the truth very quickly. It created lot of arguments and the climate in my house remained tense throughout my stay there. I was an inexperienced preacher and wished to have quick results. I realize now that my approach was wrong. I really feel sorry about it since I put them through much aggravation due to my faulty approach. Furthermore, the success for guidance is in the hands of Allah and not in the hands of the preacher. Thus, preacher should not be upset. Rather, he should be very pleasant and patient. I did visit Abdul Salam's family and shared with them what little I knew. On my return to Saudi Arabia, I advised Abdul Salam to relocate his family near Islamic Propagation Center in Manila. In this way, his family would be able to receive Islamic teaching and would be easier for them to practice Islam in an Islamic environment. Abdul Salam liked the idea and moved his family near this center. Second visit to Philippines. Next year, Abdul Salam and I went to Philippines at the same time. I was very happy to see that his family had acquired a lot of Islamic education. This time I noticed that his wife and daughters were wearing the Islamic veil and displayed great deal of advancement in practicing Islamic teachings. So much so that Abdul Salam asked me to marry one of his daughters. I told him that I would give him an answer soon. Unfortunately, the environment in my house was so tense that I could not return to Brother Abdul Salam's house in time. He left for Saudi Arabia. I told his wife, I accept the proposal but give me 1 year. I called Abdul Salam from Medina Munawwara in Saudi Arabia and explained to him the reason for my inability to see him before his departure from Philippines. I also told him that I accepted the proposal and God willing the marriage would take place next year. Dialogue with pastors. My mom was trying her best to revert me to Christianity. She invited a pastor to our home and I had a lengthy dialogue with him. He failed to convince me. My mom invited another pastor and sat with us to hear the arguments. My father was watering plants nearby and simultaneously listening to our dialogue with a keen ear. I gave answers to the pastor from my books on comparative religions. He had no sound argument. He left saying that he would bring a senior pastor with him. I told him, I'm waiting anxiously for your visit. They never returned. My father walked up to my mother and said, your son has more knowledge than your pastor. Priority of my life. The priority of my life at this time was not marriage. My first goal was to quit my job with the bank. I sought advice from many scholars. I appreciate their excellent counseling. They said, make a sincere intention for a change of job, but do not quit the present job now. In that case, you would have to leave this country by Saudi laws, and we would lose you. Look for a new job and make the change as soon as possible. I looked for advertisements in Arab news. There was a job for a fax operator. I went for the interview. The interviewer asked me, why do I intend to leave my present job since it offers me much more salary? I told him that it was a personal reason. He told me that I was overqualified for this job, so he rejected me. Another company was hiring sport engineers. The salary was again less than my present salary. I went for an interview and told them that I shall not argue about salary. I just need a change for a personal reason. I was accepted and moved to this new company. It was a great blessing in disguise, since I started working as a maintenance engineer in one of the most holy places on the earth, that means the Prophet's Mosque in Medina Munawwara, Saudi Arabia. Islamic marriage. After 1 year, Abdul Salam and I went to Philippines together and marriage took place. I explained to my parents and other relatives that it would be an Islamic marriage. They agreed to take part in it. The formal marriage ceremony took only 5 minutes. After that, I told my parents that's it. My grandmother said very loudly, I have not yet seen the bride and bridegroom together as in a Christian marriage. My mother pacified her, stating that it was an Islamic marriage. My parents became much more understanding. I was still in Philippines during a few days of Ramadan. My mother was cooking halal food for me to break my fast. After my vacation, I left for Medina, and my wife joined me there too. Allah has blessed us with 2 daughters, Safa and Marwa. At present, I have a full-time job and attend the Islamic Propagation Center in Medina as a volunteer to help new Muslims. May Allah accept my humble contribution and strengthen my Iman and make my wife and children and me more God-fearing. Last but not the least, Saleh was my neighbor in Medina Munawwara in 1998. Saleh enjoys sharing his experiences and interacting with new Muslims and non-Muslims. He can be reached at the following email address: Saleh_Echon@hotmail.com.